Okay, very sad news. I thought I was filming a video where I took the skill saw, cut the live edges off these sides. I had talked a lot about choosing your material, you know, talking about the checks on the end, making sure that you've got enough length that you can cut those checks out. I went over all this great stuff. The camera angle was great. I did all the cuts on this side so you could see the action. I was charming, witty. I just did not actually hit record like I thought I did. So we have a lost step, which was me taking the raw lumber, cutting the live edges off, picking and choosing sort of how things are going to look, and then ending it. Well, unfortunately, you don't get to see that. So where we are now is at this point where I'm going to start the milling process. This is actually going to be the top for the long unit, Ikea unit that I kind of modified into that big tall one down to a small one. And I felt like it needed a little bit more flair, a little bit more punch to kind of bring all three of those Ikea units together in my office and making them look really nice together. So I'm going to use more of this ash that I harvested myself, and I am going to make a top, and you'll get to see me go through that whole process. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's probably one of the bigger things I've done since I got my shop up and running. I do have some limiting factors. One being the jointer that I have is only a 6-inch jointer, which is just really tough to work with, but you know, just sort of starting, building my shop up, I had to go with something a little bit more economical. Eventually hope to bump up to an 8-inch at the bare minimum. 10-inch would be beautiful. But so I had to cut these down to 6 inches, which really didn't matter that much because this ash that I milled and seasoned and dried was not very huge. So it's not like I was cutting pieces right in half. I think I ended up with only one leftover piece here that could potentially be used for something, and it's only yay big. So it's not like I lost a lot of material in doing it this way. So I'm not too burdened by it. But yeah, so now we're gonna get into the milling process. I've got the jointer set up. I have not checked it for square yet. So super important to make sure, especially when you're doing a top like this, you want to try to bring the pieces off of the machine as perfect as possible. And I can see that I'm a little bit out here. Typically you'll have to do some fine tuning regardless. I do not have a proper woodworking bench built yet. Maybe that'll be a video later on. So I'm gonna struggle a little bit with this, just with my setup. But yeah, you should have a nice bench plane and probably have to tune up the edges as you put them side or edge to edge and prepare to glue them all together to make one solid top. So yeah, that'll be a struggle for me just because of what I don't currently have in my shop. But one day I'll get there. Okay, so we are nice and square here. So I will pay extra close attention to running these things through the jointer and trying to get them perfect, because it'll make my life a lot easier when I bring them together. And the least amount of fine tuning work that I have to do on the edges to make these things perfectly tight is going to be super beneficial to me. So I'm going to pay extra close attention when I go to joint my edges. All right, so let's start making some noise. And for anyone that's wondering, this is just an air filtration system. I'm not even sure if you can see it on camera there. It just has two different filters. One's a throwaway filter, and then one's collects the finer particulates, and that's one that you clean out yourself. If you have a small shop like this, I would highly recommend investing in one of those. go a little bit thinner than I wanted, unfortunately, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. I'll still be able to make this work. I've got this beautiful piece right here. And probably end up doing something along these lines. I don't even know if I need that piece. Obviously I'll have to do some trims here on the table saw. I will need this piece. I need to get 18.5 and I'm at 17. So this one might fit in. I don't really want to, I'm thinking this is the front of the top here. So we might end up popping that in the middle there, something along those lines. Something like that, perhaps. It'll probably end up, yeah, this one, because of the nastiness here, I'm going to be ripping a fair bit off that. So, I don't know whether I like this. Yeah, so I got some figuring out to do after we do the table saw work to get them ripped down to width, take off some of the nastiness on both sides. I do have a lot of extra to work with. We've got 4 inches, 3.5 inches of extra to work with. At the most, I'm going to take off 2.5 probably, so that I've got an inch of oopsie room. But yeah, so that'll be the next thing, picking out exactly what I'm going to cut off, and so that I end up being at about 19.5 when I'm done. And we'll do that in another video. I'll just give you a quick view of this up close. So we're gonna need to do some you know, figuring out, I guess, to find out what's gonna look the best. This piece here is just beautiful. And unfortunately the other ones are a little bit more knotted up and a little less gorgeous, but I'll find a way to make this look good and it's gonna look fantastic. That's it for this one. When we talk again, we will be ripping these down and finding that perfect combination of boards to make this top.